First of all, good evening, everyone. Me and my group have a presentation for you guys, and we're going to talk about our ideas on a profile copier. So let's get started with the introduction. So the profile copier is a very useful tool that we can use with a variety range of functions, and it's really important in engineering department, or which also contribute like a huge amount of development to the society because of the variety range of function that we use on a daily basis and the limit of measurement. We bring this topic up because we find that it nowadays it's still like a market which can be a really useful tool, and it can be sold on market really easily because it's really convenient. And for the next part, we're going to talk about the description. So the description comes up with the width of 100 to 200 millimeters and the length of 100 meter with the weight must be below 200 gram. And one of the most value description is probably it's convenient. Can you go to the next? Yes. So we comes to the summary of the contour gauge. Contour gauge or the profile copier can be used to measure complex shape in different angle. We use it also as a ruler to measure the length of everyday object as well, and that is probably why it is really useful on a daily basis. And it also remove any limit engineering area, so it means that it can be used in any way possible to ask for its function. And now it's the mind map. Here's the mind map that we did pre-design for our model of the profile copier or the contour gauge. And as you can see, we have the size which we talk about in the description and its functionality. But also we has designed it with a budget really low of only $30, which means that you can find it really convenient, not only to buy one but also to make one as well. And it has its safety lock to keep the pins, so the safety part is taken care of. Um, the functionality we already talked about that, and also the materials is what is very varies. It can be either plastic, wood, or metal. And here is our project requirement. For our profile gauge, we must have a working width of 100 to 200 millimeter to make it very convenient for the customers. It must have a lock feature for safety purposes. Moreover, the pin's length must be the pin's length is 100 millimeter, and it must not be flexible, just so it can keep on the pins very tightly. And it must have at least 5 pins per 10 millimeter for our design. And as for its lifetime, it should be at least for 10 years, since it is very useful, and we try to make it last for its duration as long as possible. And for this type of tools which we use in a daily basis, usually it should be straightforward and doesn't really require any manual. And the weight, as we discussed, it should be below 200 grams. and it must be made with ethically sourced parts, and also the pins that are offset to the floor. It must have the pins that are offset to the floors by no less than 5 millimeters, and it must be really fairly simple to manufacture. Now it comes to our minute meeting. We're gonna talk about what we do during our meeting. And yeah, so the first one, we discuss all of the pre-presentation stuff like the minute meeting, the front cover, and the mind map, so we can kickstart our design and our assignments. And secondly, we also discuss on the needs and specification. That is probably one of the most important meeting because I find it really useful for our assignments. And thirdly, we did a work breakdown structure and the Gantt chart. We talk about who gonna do the main task, which is the design, and we talk about the Gantt chart, which Nick handled it very nicely. And also we discuss on the QFD, and we create a OneDrive PowerPoint slide. This is how we come to this presentation today. And now I'm gonna hand it over to Nick to talk about the needs.
Thanks, Noah. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, no worries. So starting with our needs for the project, we have a list of 9, along with our expectations for each and the rating that we gave it. For the cost of material, we believe it's affordable as it's not the most expensive material available to us, but also not something that can be easily damaged. With the material of product, we're using materials that are reliable and the best choice for a profile copier, sorry. With the size, it's a decent size for profile copier, but one could argue that for some objects it could be either too small or too big. With the weight, we expect it to be under 200 grams, and considering the different objects it could be used for, we believe the lighter it is, the better it is. For durability, as I said, it could be used for a long period of time. For functional, it can easily measure complex shapes due to its design, and can also measure objects with the ruler built into it. It does have a lot of variety in its features, such as a ruler and a blocking system. However, we could add additional equipment if needed to. Similarly, with mechanics, the locking mechanism isn't vastly complicated, however, also not super easy to use, and with the warranty, it can be used for some time, but we can't guarantee exact dates for it. Yep. Thank you. For specification table, we focused on 5 topics that we can adjust for our project, including measurements, mimic as a ruler, durability, measure complex shapes, and safety. For every topic, we agreed all topics are required and not optional. We also agreed each topic is valued and that we require 1 unit for each. Finally, we had given an acceptable test or method for each topic. For measurement, we would measure the tools with tools given to us. To test the ruler, we would draw a straight line to test its accuracy. For durability, we would do a simple drop test to check for damage. For the complex shapes, we would, of course, perform a measurement test on complex shapes to understand how accurately the profile copier can copy the shape. And for safety, we would perform a safety test with items such as the lock pins and sharp edges to determine how safe it is. Thank you. This is the QFD. So we've plotted a list of customer requirements as well as the design requirements to illustrate the relationship between the two. To make it easier, we have color-coded each relationship. We have also added the level of importance for each customer requirement on a scale of 1 to 5. And as you can see, there's only 5 negatives that we have that are plotted there. Yep, thanks. And for the work breakdown structure, we've basically got 6 main points, which are research, basically researching about the product, planning it in terms of scheduling and mind maps, generator of ideas, so we're getting ideas and started brainstorming and sketching, development ideas, started improving the idea, analyzing and making a prototype, final design, making the final design, and of course drawing it on SolidWorks, and of course lastly the team and individual report. And then finally the Gantt chart. So this is basically our Gantt chart. As you can take a look, it's been broken down into everyone's roles. Just to point out, by the way, we did have a little typo. So there's two Nicks, as you can see. One's Nick, one's Nick Daya. But for Nick in the green, that's actually Norwith. And the yellow Nick is me. And all the ones that have not been named are basically group product, basically. To conclude our PowerPoint, I'll hand over to Dave.
Thank you, Nick. So for the next phase of our project is the generation of idea, where we brainstorm, sketch, and analysis our ideas and choose one of them as our final design. As you can see, this product is already perfect on the market nowadays, and there's nothing much we can change. So we just change the outlook and some of the functional of it. For the first idea design on the right side, we got is similarly to the standard product. The only different thing is have the overshape to preventing the injury while using it. For the second one, it is more simpler than the first one. It only have the body part without a lock function. However, for this one, it's very hard to use since it does not have the lock function. All the pins gonna be tight and hard to push. For the third one, we just reduce the other side of the head with the arrow overhead and the lock function. And on the other side, we add in a hole, as you can see in the middle, which you can install the joystick, which help you can measure the object far away or in the place it's hard to reach. Overall, the design is designed to choose which very standard, simple concept, yet it still have to satisfy all the factor to the requirement. So the concept number one is the one we chose to do our final. And here are some the part we did on the SolidWorks program. This is a pin. It is one of the crucial part of the product. The pins take on the role of replicate the complex shape of the object. It's very thin, just 2 mm. It has space in the middle, so it can insert to the pin holder. And there will be 50 or more of them to make it work with a range 150 mm. For the second part is a pin holder. The purpose of it is just to keep the pin not falling in the length of 100 mm. Third part is just a wall which preventing the pin slide to a side and keep the pins in the middle. There are two walls for each side at the end of the pin holder. Fourth one, it just simply is the body which should cover the other part inside. It has a round edge to prevent scratch or injury to the user when they use the product, while like by using a force to push it or carrying it around, they will not get injured. Furthermore, it also make the product look neat and unique. Finally, is the important part of it is the lock design, which will keep the pin stable after the user measure or replicate the object. And here is the 3D model of it. I make it on orthogonal view, so you guys can have a different point of view of it, such as top view, side view, and front view. And here is the other look at how it looks. For the final one, this crop is just want to explain how the lock function work. As you can see, between the pins there are still space, but little space. So when you rotate the lock, it will compress the wall, and the wall will compress the pin to a side. It will make the gap between all the pins closer, and apply for the friction rule. The pin will be stable after the user measure it. Finally, for the budget, if according to the school assignment, we will not cost anything at all, but due to the real product, we will have to cost like $24.90 to $26.99 to get some material as plastic, which is the cheapest one, I believe. For the equipment, we have to get the printer machine, and to produce the product, we only need to use the electricity power based on my research, which is 80 cents for 1 kilowatt. Overall, the minimum cost of us to do the product is $225.70. After this project, we can see that our time management is pretty poor. The deadline task complete pretty late, and though we start the task early, we have struggled and difficult doing the SolidWorks part since we're not good at it. However, we got a good communication team, sharing idea and understand with each other, cover each part to make the whole presentation today. Well, thank you for listening. If you have any question, just ask.
Thanks very much. That was a very nice design, very nice thinking, and nice implementation. We really enjoyed every aspect of it. Please join me in giving a clap to the presenter. Well done, well done. You did a very good job. Thank you, thank you. That was great. So, with great presentation comes great questions. So don't lose your chance of asking these genius people, how did they do it? All right, so just, this is your chance. Ask them before they disappear. You would regret it. When you get a chance like this, don't miss it. Just make sure you ask this wonderful team, how did they do it? Or if you have any criticism, feel free to criticize them. Good question from Saigon. Norit, Nick, Dave, who wants to answer it?
Yep. Okay, you can answer, North.
So our commitment is to do it for duration for at least 10 years, and the life expectancy, it can be depends on the materials we use. If according to our design, it can be last for at least 10 years. But if there are other products that they use a different material, it can be a bit different.
Okay.
Does
Very
that
good.
answer the question?
All right. Who asked the question? James. All right. Very good.
Thank you,
Yeah, yeah.
Subal.
Thank you, Saigon. Thanks. Any other question? All right. If there is no question, I would like to thank you again for giving this wonderful presentation.